Hello, everyone. First of all, wanted to thank you for coming to the second edition of ETH Belgrade, and thanks for joining to discuss all things Ethereum and DeFi, of course. My name is Nikola. I'm coming from DeFi Saver team, and today we are going to talk about latest developments in DeFi, latest developing trends in DeFi, what basically builders are building and what the users are using. Okay, so today's agenda looks like this. We're going first to cover some new iterations of DeFi Blue Chip protocols, because there has been a bunch of them throughout the last year, last time we were here. Then we're going to head to an upgrade that Ethereum protocol went through, the DeFiCon, that resulted in lower transaction costs for layer 2 networks by introducing new data type, the blobs. Then we're going to head to the topic that most of us would say could not be avoided for this talk, and that's, of course, points that has taken DeFi by storm. We're going to just briefly explain the mechanism because a lot of teams are doing the points program now. And after that, we're going to talk about two strategies, very popular strategies in DeFi. The first one is the cash and carry strategy that has been enabled in DeFi with the introduction of perpetual future swaps, the first implementation of perpetual future swaps in DeFi, and the tokenization of this strategy, which is Ethena project doing. Another one is the leverage staking, or now restaking, with the introduction of the EigenLayer project. And I'll wrap up the talk with some DeFi tools you can consider using nowadays while wandering through the DeFi space. Okay, to start off, wanted to go through some new protocol versions. A lot of teams releasing their new iterations of protocols. I've put here some QR codes if you want to dive deeper into those. I'll just talk about them very briefly. Aave v4 Aave team has proposed their version 4 features. Most notable one being the unified liquidity layer, where the Aave team is trying to avoid liquidity fragmentation upon each protocol deployment, new version of the protocol. And another one is, for example, the soft liquidations for their stablecoin called Go. Liquidity v2 also released the white paper recently. Actually, the Boyan from Liquidity team will speak right after me, so stay tuned for more details. Liquidity basically in their V2 introduced so-called user set interest rates. So basically, if you want to open a position in the Liquidity protocol in V2, you would need to specify the collateral amount, the debt amount, and the interest you are willing to pay. Now, this can be adjusted anytime in the future. But my point being is that they are now releasing the new redemption mechanism that will be based on interest rates, on your interest rate rather than on your collateral ratio, which was the case for V1. A redemption mechanism is, by the way, used to keep the peg of their new stablecoin called BOLD. Uniswap v4, of course, releasing a new version, releasing a bunch of features, to be honest. One of them, and the most notable one, probably being hooks, which enables developers to build any logic before and after the swap is performed, and a lot of more things. Synthetics v3 and GMX v2, two most popular perpetual futures protocols, releasing their new versions, trying to introduce delta neutral liquidity pool, meaning that their LPs, liquidity providers, now don't need to hedge their positions elsewhere. They can rather do it just by depositing in the Synthetix or GMX, because it's the delta neutral pool, the hedging is like built in the protocol. CurveUSD, another one. CurveUSD introduced the mechanism called soft liquidations for their stablecoin. Soft liquidations are, in brief, a mechanism that tries to gradually swap your collateral from a volatile asset to like a stable asset, a stable coin usually. In this case, their stable coin called CurveUSD. And it goes both ways. So if the collateral price starts to go down, your, let's say, Ether, if you're using Ether as collateral, will be gradually swapped to CurveUSD and used as collateral. And in the opposite way, if the Ether price recovers, your CurveUSD, now used as collateral, will become Ether again, will be converted to Ether again. LlamaLand is kind of another iteration of CurveUSD, because LlamaLand is a money market, meaning that you can also short any type of asset by using CurveUSD as collateral and then borrowing any supported asset. Because CurveUSD, the protocol, is more like a CDP protocol where you can just take long positions on supported assets by borrowing the stablecoin. MorphoBlue being another one. MorphoBlue is not an optimizer like the previous versions. Like, it does not optimize the interest rates on underlying protocols like Aave and Compound, but rather is a protocol for itself. It aims to be the infrastructure layer, the immutable liquidity layer to which builders can build on top of, to, let's say, aggregate liquidity or provide risk management services. This is all permissionless, and the layers on top of MorphoBlue, which is immutable, can be upgradable. Euler V2, sorry, and Euler and Yearn also releasing the new versions. An interesting observation when looking at all those new protocol and versions is that a lot of teams decided to take a step back and release a more generalized version of their protocol, in a sense that, for example, you can build Synthetix V2 on top of Synthetix V3, or you can build Compound V3 on top of MorphoBlue. Aave, also a good example, with their approach of having unified liquidity layer, where basically Aave V3 can be just one borrow market on that unified liquidity layer. And generally just taking a more modular approach when designing their new versions of protocols, which is a great thing from the perspective of integrators like DeFi Saver, because it leaves the room for us to provide additional value to the protocol to make the user experience more better and more convenient. In general, just to build tools on top of those protocols. Again, if you wish to learn more about what's new in those protocols, feel free to scan the QR codes. I don't know if it will work. I hope so. Okay, so if you now go a layer below to the Ethereum protocol itself, it went through the upgrade called Dancone, which brought lower transaction fees for the layer 2 networks by introducing new data type called blobs. So basically now layer 2 solutions can rent the storage on L1 for a limited period of time, which reduces instead of infinitely, sorry, and that reduces costs, transaction costs, which those networks can then transfer to the users to either onboard new users or onboard new use cases, new projects that are building on rollups. One of that use case is, of course, on-chain trading, which has become a lot cheaper, like significantly cheaper after the upgrade. For example, creating a leveraged position via Aave V3 on, let's say, Arbitrum and Optimism now costs a few cents, which is, I think, really cool because now we can onboard more people. They can just try things out, try new protocols, try the on-chain trading in a completely non-custodial way. Bringing the new use cases, when speaking about it, also new lending protocols are now going to L2s, deploying their newest versions on L2s. So the first one was Aave, as it kind of first took the multi-chain approach. Then we got Compound V3 going on L2s. Now we got Morphoblue on deployed on Base, or soon to be deployed on Base. And we got Curves Llama on Arbitrum. And this is not just lending protocols. When it comes to trading, you can use also perpetual future protocols like Synthetics V3, which also deployed on L2s. GMX was there from the start. And the protocols for margin trading, like the Gearbox, also recently went to L2s. When it comes to stats, from our perspective, from DeFi Saver, the usage of L2s, I think, has been gradually following the overall increase in usage of rollups. So if we take Arbitrum, for example, last time I talked here, it was June last year. From that point until now, I think Arbitrum TVL like 3x'd, which just shows that these kind of upgrades can bring significant improvements, leading to more adoption like in the long run. Okay, so now the mechanism that has taken DeFi by storm, it's called points. It's a recently popularized mechanism the teams are using to attract liquidity and to incentivize certain activities on their platform. It's basically an off-chain tracking of user behavior that stems to attract more users with the aim of future rewards that are usually tokens. So if we assume that the majority of projects in our industry will end up having a token at some point, I think this is actually net positive for the industry, because at least users now have some clarity, some information about whether the airdrop is going to happen, when it's going to happen, and how long will the points program last. So from the user perspective, the more points you earn, the greater the potential rewards that are, again, as I said, usually tokens. Okay, so now we head to the strategies. The first one is the cash and carry one. This strategy is actually has been very popular in the traditional finance, but it has brought a new yield source in DeFi after we first implemented the perpetual future swaps on chain, basically. It's a pretty straightforward because it requires opening a delta neutral position. Now what that is that imagine that I have like 10 ETH, I deposit 9 into Aave, and the remaining one I deposit into the perpetual future protocol like Synthetics, and use that 1 Ether in Synthetics as a margin to open a 10x short position, Ether short position. So now I have an equivalent exposure of longing and shorting, in a sense that I have like 10 spot Ether, and on the other side I have a 10x short position on the same underlying asset. So I basically have no price exposure, and my goal is to earn some yield. How the yield is earned, on one side I am a supplier on a lending protocol, let's say Aave V3, and earning interest. On the other side, I'm earning what's called a funding rate. Now, funding, it's a mechanism that keeps the price of perpetual future contract correlated, or to be more precise, the same as the underlying asset. And if you are shorting perpetual future contracts, you are usually earning an interest. So this goes, of course, with some risks. It's not a risk-free strategy, of course. The funding can go negative, meaning you can end up paying interest on the short side. But yeah, it has become really, really popular also in the DeFi space. By the way, if you want to learn more about perps, I also left a QR code there. Yeah, this strategy users have been using it like on their own throughout the DeFi. You can open a cash and carry strategy in a completely decentralized way, as I explained, using, let's say, Aave and synthetics, and then rebalance your position according to the market movements. But the thing is that the perpetual future volumes are still happening mostly on centralized exchanges. Now, that means that there is a huge opportunity to capture that yield from centralized exchanges. And this is exactly what the Athena project has managed to accomplish. They're live, I think, just over 3 months now, and they already have like 3 billion in TVL. Athena, under the hood, just does everything for you. You deposit some funds to their protocol, and they, behind the scenes, open a delta neutral position for you and mint you a token. So they essentially tokenize the cash and carry strategy. They mint you a token. In this case, it's called USDE. And if you want, as a user, to capture that yield, you actually, by the design of their tokenomics, need to stake that USDE to a token called SUSDE, which has been earning mostly over 30% APY so far. But keep in mind that we are in high leverage demand market conditions, meaning that there is a lot of people trying to borrow more to increase their exposure to a desired asset, meaning that the interest have spiked. That means that the funding is positive and that the short side is earning, which is basically explaining where does the yield come from in this case. Again, if you now, since it's so easy to, you can just go and buy SUSDE on the open market and gain that 30% APY. It's of course a decent asset for collateral. So a bunch of lending protocols started onboarding it as a collateral asset on their protocol, meaning that now you can open a leveraged cash and carry strategy by depositing SUSDE as collateral, borrowing some stablecoin, and then looping that position. It is profitable if the borrow rate on the underlying lending protocol is lower than the SUSDE APY, the yield. And yeah, this has become really, quite popular recently. The second one I wanted to talk about today is leveraged ETH staking. Now, this has been around for quite some time, and I just wanted to say that it's still a thing if you want to earn yield without losing the exposure to Ether. As I said, we are in a time of high leverage demand, so interest went up. So this strategy kind of went into shadows a bit, but you can still earn even over 20% on ETH because of two main innovations from last time we talked. The first one is being that now lending protocols, like the majority of lending protocols, are using primary exchange rate between the staked ETH and ETH, meaning that, for example, if you're using Lido's staked ETH in Aave as collateral, Aave is pricing that asset based on Lido's exchange rate, so rather than on the market rate. So this essentially significantly reduces the liquidation risk because we are not using the market rate anymore. This is, by the way, true for some liquid staking tokens, not for all. The second thing is that the minimum spread between ETH staking and the borrow rate in the underlying protocols went down to 0.2% because you can do up to 18x leverage, for example, in Morpho for this kind of strategy. Minimum spread in terms that the leverage staking strategy is still more profitable than just simply holding a liquid staking token, which, by the way, has been the case for almost like all the time, as we can see on the right-hand graph. I, by the way, wrote a risk analysis on the leverage staking strategy. Again, the QR code. And yeah, we at DeFi Saver have built a tool last year solely meant for the purpose of this strategy, which lets you choose the underlying protocol and open the leverage staking position like in one click. Under the hood, it looks like this. So we are utilizing flash loans to avoid looping the position because it's more gas efficient. And yeah, briefly, it looks like this. And yeah, after talking about staking, we can talk about restaking, of course. There is a project called EigenLayer. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's a project that introduced the reuse of Ether as a currency on the consensus layer. EigenLayer is basically a set of smart contracts on Ethereum that enables Ethereum holders and stakers to restake their Ether, to opt in the smart contracts of EigenLayer in order to extend the crypto economic security to additional applications called AVSs, actively validated services, and thus increase their staking yield, but at the same time potentially be exposed to more slashing risk. EigenLayer has attracted over, I think, 20 billion in TVL so far. It is in the process of incentivizing the builders to build the actively validated services since they have attracted liquidity. And EigenLayer itself does not have a restaking token, so if you decide to opt in with, let's say, Ether, you will not get the proof of deposit token from them. And that's why, as far as I know, we now have over 10 liquid restaking protocols doing just that. Next step would be to add those liquid restaking tokens to the lending protocols and create a looping strategy similar to the previous one with SUSDE. And this is exactly what is happening right now in DeFi with the fact that those restaking tokens actually do not have an increased yield just yet because, as I said, EigenLayer is in the process of incentivizing builders to build those AVSs that can be validated by the Ethereum POS. Yeah, and to wrap up, I wanted to just leave a few useful tools, in my opinion, that you can consider using while wandering through DeFi. The first topic is transaction submission. I basically just wanted to mention if you want to avoid being MEV'd, consider using private RPCs, the tools like MEV Blocker or Flashbots. If you need ETH for gas or any token to send transactions, you can use a tool from DeFi Llama team called Small Refuel. And if you want to simulate transactions prior to executing them live, you can use either a DeFi Saver for DeFi stuff, or in more general terms, use a wallet that has simulations built in like a Rabby. When it comes to loan management, to minimize liquidation and front-end downtime risk, you can just head to DeFi Saver. Since we now switched to Safe, I'll speak about this like in a couple of seconds, more about this. And for swapping, consider using DEX aggregators at least, or ideally DEX meta aggregators like the Llama swap. Just to bring more context about DeFi Saver and Safe, we recently switched from using this proxy as a default smart wallet to Safes. The rationale behind it is basically that the Safe is a newer tech, that it's an industry standard, and it's more gas efficient. And to be honest, we got a feedback from users saying, yes, this proxy is an open tech, anybody can use it, but nobody actually ended up using it, so we kind of feel locked to your platform, and we listened to the feedback, so this is not true anymore. We now use Safe, which has its own official UI, so you basically can use any front end that supports safe wallets and manage your position there. So we try to avoid the walled garden approach. And from the technical standpoint, the safe contract can be used as a proxy contract, which is important for us since we are not using it to bundle multiple actions into one transaction. And yes, so just wanted to end the talk with the audience potentially maybe earning some points while using DeFi Saver. So Safe has actually an ongoing points program called Safe Pass. If you have used DeFi Saver, you have already might earn some points, and you can check that by checking the QR code. That'll be it. Thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed. Open for any questions. I think I see one there. No. Sorry. Can we have a mic? Oh. So the first question was about the synthetics or GMX or Uniswap. Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, if you deposit the liquidity, you get the LP tokens back or the NFT, as you mentioned in V3. If you essentially burn the LP tokens or the NFT, that means you've withdrawn the liquidity you've previously deposited back to you. So it can either, as you mentioned, in case of hack, be drained from the pool, and you can lost funds in case you previously haven't, burned the LP tokens, meaning that you haven't previously withdrawn the liquidity. And for the second question, I think the V4 will also have NFTs, but I'm not sure on that one. That is a good question. I guess they're sticking with the NFTs as that has shown to be a good approach for V3. Sorry, I can't hear you. Well, I'm not sure if there will be any difference when it comes to the LP tokens, to the NFTs, but there are a bunch of other improvements. Like I mentioned, the hooks being one of the improvement. Essentially, that you can build any logic that can be implemented before the swap execution and after the swap execution. Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Can we? Okay,
Questions?
do we have any more questions? Okay, thanks again one more time.